everybody. I am Lehman Crafton Jr., aka Zorval Chan Less Than Guru, and today's video is kind of a tutorial on how to set up a Palladium game in Foundry using the generic RPG aid, or generic role-playing game aid. This is a system created by James Huddleston, which I was very lucky, fortunate to stumble across when I was going every couple of months to the Foundry Discord asking if anybody had made a Palladium system, because I am not a coder in any way, shape, or form. I can take easy HTML and add and modify, and that's how I did things in the what I want to say. I did things like that for Roll20, and Foundry is very good in its versatility, but on the other hand, it is very, I would say, daunting to non-coders. So James graciously offered to put a Palladium rule set into his generic RPG aid, and it has been wonderful. So I would like to show you how you can do it. Now, I will say, unlike Roll20, where you can just go and you can choose the, I'll bring it over, you can choose something like this, character sheet here, or fantasy, and this kind of works with both fantasy first edition and second edition with minor modifications. And like I said, I know enough that like I can change words. Like this used to say psionics. I for a while was dabbling and calling it innate magic, and that's why this has innate magic ISP. I don't use PPE, I call it magic points. It's a different system type thing. So I was able to change stuff like that in the game character sheet, but actually making character sheet could not do it. And Foundry has been out for only a little over a year, and since a lot or most, you could say, people play D&D 5th edition, that's where a ton of their awesome mods and stuff are for that system. And it basically takes somebody wanting to make a system for another game and being able to code it for it to work. So until now, there hasn't been any really Palladium, but I want to show you how to do it. Now, I will say this is not any way, shape, or form involved with any of Palladium's IPs. There's not like a fantasy sheet or a riff sheet or BTS sheet. This basic structure, this basic game aid can be used for any of those. And you as the game master will build the character sheet, and you can use the same system, and you could make a Rifts game, you could make a BTS game, you could make a Heroes Unlimited game, and you can tailor it to have as many house rules as you want, which is great. If you watch my Ninter Veil Palladium videos, you will know that I do a lot of house rules. So this is a great thing. You can make it straight from the book, you can do the house rules. So basically, I want to show you how I have used it. If you are doing something in Foundry, you will want to get the system, and let me go ahead and I will return to the setup. Let me do that. So I will go here. So you'll see that this is my Palladium game. You will want to go to Game Systems, you will want to install the system, and what you will want to do is do the generic role-playing game aid. And as you see here, the author is James Huddleston, and I will try to put a link to his YouTube channel where he goes into other games that you can use for his generic role-playing game aid, which is really cool. You can download this one system and you can play a variety or build a variety of games and use it from Palladium to versus the Dark Master or against the Dark Master, I guess is what it's called, and lots of other games. So that's really cool. So you want to install it, and then he works like a maniac, so a lot of times there will be some updates. So I just wanted to make sure that that was current. So we'll go to games, and then you launch your world, you name it. Hopefully, if you're doing any type of Foundry, you'll know a little bit about that. So this is just kind of a scene I've set up as a placeholder scene, so as I make characters in the game, I can give access to the players to look around their characters, so that when we actually play the game, they'll at least have the chance to have done things. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to clear the chat so we can start with a kind of a fresh thing. You'll want to go to your game settings, configure settings to set it up for Palladium. Since this is used for multiple different game systems, you will want to make sure that it is Palladium. So you can have your core systems and you can do all the stuff there like normal, but then you want to go to system settings. And here there's a lot of different things. There's a 3d6 rule set, a d20, which is a very, very basic kind of a SDR, 3rd edition Pathfinder-ish type rule set, very, very basic. Sort of based off of this, as well as the D100 rule set, is where the Palladium rule set came to be. It's also in here, if you see anything saying D120, that also refers to Palladium, as it is a system based on D20s for your combats and most of your saving throws. It's also based off of D100s or percentile for most of your skills. And I say most because it's not all. So it's a D120 if you see that. So you'll want to pick Palladium games. And you just want to make sure all ranks count for 1 point. Straight initiative value, what this is going to do is it's going to roll your d20 for initiative, and if you have any bonuses to your initiative, it's going to add that, and that's how your combat tracker will take place. And then we want to allow users to group and sort items, so make sure that that is checked. And I'll show you how that works and why you'll want to use that. And then the other thing is there's a few things that I found don't really work well without having this Four Amigos house rules. I really have no idea what this really means, but I check it because certain things work better, I found. And then combat tracker in use. There's a few. You'll want to choose the Palladium Shadowrun 4. I guess that's for 4th edition. That came later. It's really cool with this generic role-playing game. If there's anything that are similar type things, it can all be added and adjusted as you want. So you'll want all of those. You'll want to save your changes. And then to start making your character sheet, you will go to your actors directory and you will create an actor. Now you need to put a name. If you don't put a name and choose something, then Foundry just doesn't like it and won't let you make it. So I'm going to show you sort of how to make a character, but I'm not going to show you exactly from this. So I'm just going to do this as a test. And then you want to, having made Palladium your choice here, you're going to want to go to that D120. Like I said, it's because you're using both percentile dice, D100s, as well as D20s. So that's what it is. And you can create a new actor. And here it is. This is the base character sheet for any Palladium game. And you will notice that it is pretty bare. And that's to allow you to build the game as you want. There are certain universals. Test. if you decided to call your character Jim, that's where you would enter that. And then you have various other things that you will use. Alignment, because Palladium uses alignment, perception, and you see that highlighted. That means if I go to chat and I roll perception, actually it's not going to do anything right now because I haven't added a value for it. But then Anish, same thing. I haven't done any, so these are kind of not working. They're ready to be worked. And then there's various main primary attributes. This is where you're going to have like your PS, your IQ, all of those things. Combat is where you'll have your defenses, which include parries, dodges, and saving throws. Your attacks will be down here, which will be your attack and damages. Skills will be up here. It is called skills, spells, and checks. Various names are going to be changed, but this will just mainly be for your skills. Information to share, that's where I actually put my spells and psychic powers and stuff like that. All items, this is kind of your worksheet, how you start making things. And then the scripts, this is something that this generic role-playing game aid originally, and the concept behind is to have an actual, I guess you could say, true character sheet, for lack of a better word, where you could import into it, and if you import everything at the beginning, it'll fill in everything, it'll get you skills and populate everything, and then as you update that character, you can just keep importing it. Now, that is a little beyond my capabilities. Also, I have a lot of players that just, there's no way I could get them to have two different character sheets. It would be like wrangling cats. So you can make this sheet pretty, effective as a character sheet, and I'm going to kind of show you how to do that. So this is just the basic type of character sheet. Now, to show you, if I go to this characters and open this, you'll see that there's this one called sheet template name. And if I open that, this is what I have made as my base character sheet. This is the character sheet that I will start every character using, because it has pretty much what is going to be for my Palladium first edition house ruled. So you can see here we have this main. There's already a bunch of stuff added here. I've added all the primary attributes except for speed. In my house rules, I'm not going to have speed because I don't see the purpose of having one attribute, a whole attribute that does nothing but tell you how fast you can run. So I'm combining that with the physical prowess. If you don't want to and you love speed, put speed there. That's fine. I'll show you how to do it. You go to all items, you have this primary attribute, you put that up, you write speed, you can put the abbreviation there, and then here I would just do speed, or maybe SPD, all capital. Here is where you'll put it. So if you have like a 20, you can put 20 there. You want to write any notes, if you want to say copy and paste off of the PDF of the book to tell you how to calculate whatever, and you'll notice that this primary attribute says -1. Now, they will put things alphabetically to that -1, and if you remember, we put that sort check mark there, and what that does is that allows you to put things in order. Right now, you'll see this -1. It means that it's going to be to the top left, and the higher the number goes, will go to the bottom right. So actually, I didn't do a parentheses, I put a dash accidentally, but there's 8 attributes. This would be the 8th, so if I make that 8, you'll see that it appeared there. I can close that, and then if I go to my main, my speed is there. That's how easy it is to create something for all of those attributes. So I'm going to go ahead and delete it because my games don't use speed, but I wanted to show you how to do that. Pools. Pools are anything that has a number that will fluctuate. And as you can see, I have it for actions per round, which will be very important for the combat tracker. Hit points. I have a difference between what would be personal SDC in most of the games in Palladium and armor SDC. So I just call mine shock points, and armor is structural damage capacity, armor SDC. That's why I have two different things. Also, ISP magic points. And again, if you don't like shock points and you're like, Lehman, you're an idiot, just call it SDC, you can just make this. You can just edit and you can call it SDC. And you can make this SDC and maybe a SDC for the armor one. You can do it any way you want. And that's what is, in my opinion, really, really cool about this system. And again, you see this sort, so you can put things in whatever order you want. I just wanted the actions per round first. I wanted my hit points and shock points together. Same thing next over, I wanted ISP and magic points together. And then this is not part of the character itself, it's equipment, so I put it over here. These variables are cool little things that I'll show you how to do, and you don't have to do these. I just thought that they are a cool thing to add. Combat here just did all these defenses. If you go to all items, you'll see the primary requisites were there, or attributes, sorry. The skills are here. I just made a camouflage just to show how that would work. Your reference values. Now here, remember, none of this did anything, and now it shows this. So your level and your XP are your reference values. So what you'll want to do is you'll want to go to all items, reference value. You'll make one level, and then you can write 1, and then now you see that that became a 1. And the same thing with the XP. You would do a reference value. You would call it, I think it's just XP, and you can keep track of your XP. And then down here in notes, you could say like you need, they usually end with a 1, so you can need that, and you can write whatever notes you want. So for level 2. So now you have this, and that will show you, and then if you go over here and you hover over it, it'll show you what you need. So you can do that. And that's how you fill out those two. Now for these other ones, if you go down, they're going to be in advantages. So you go down to traits and you go to advantages, and if you go up here, there's going to be certain things that you have to call them for the thing to appear. So I'll just pop these out one at a time and show you what you have to name them. So on here, it's called additional information, and you won't change this. You need to keep this additional information, but you can write whatever you want there. Now if I go up here, that is going to be this where it says notes. See, that says notes. You can put in disposition or motive or whatever little thing that you might want at the top of the character sheet and use that for additional information. And if we go down and we look at alignment, you need to call it alignment. But where I put alignment here, you'll see it says alignment here. So this is where you could put like principled. And you'll see that it went to principled. So again, I'm going to go down to that alignment, and I'm just going to put alignment here. I write alignment here that it normally would just say notes, but I wrote that to show people and myself, so I don't forget, hey, hey, here is where you actually change it. You don't change it up here, you change it down here. So, um, and that's how all of these character class, you call it character class. You do need the capitals and lower cases. They're one word, and then you just write what it is there. Erase, you put it here. Specific information. This, what I used it for is true names, but you could use it for whatever you wanted, and it would be up in that spot. And then your perception, initiative, and dodge are going to be in defenses, so that you might get bonuses to perception, to initiative, and dodge. So that's why those three are that. So they're just called that. So we can open that up. Perception. The D20 defense, you'll see that there's D100, because you roll a D20. Even though it's not necessarily a defense, you roll in a D20, and then if you got any bonuses to it, you could put a bonus there, and now you'll see perception. And where I couldn't roll anything before, now that I have something down here, you click that, and you'll see that +1, the die roll was a 14, so the 15. You want to click that and open it. You got a 14, a D20, plus a 1, 14 equals 15. The initiative doesn't have anything, so it's just going to roll your initiative. So that is how the perception, the initiative, and the dodge work. And so, since those are kind of universal to Palladium, they got put up here. They'll also, you'll notice, are on here. And you would just click. So I can click here, or I can click here. Either way, it's fine. So initiative, initiative. So that is all of these things. Now for my other defenses, if you look down here, that's where I put charm and impress and trust and intimidate, because these are in defenses instead of, say, like skills, because certain things like IQ will up every skill. So a place was needed to put these so that it would not be, the values would not be adjusted based off of other things. So charm and impress, trust and intimidate, you can put there, and they'll show here. And I have it for the base character class, but if one of my characters doesn't have it, you can just delete it from that future character. So I put it in the base sheet, but if the character doesn't have it, they could delete it if they don't want it there. Also, with your defenses are your coma versus death, mystically healed, and normally healed, because that's a thing in Palladium First Edition. And it's supposed to be a 31% or higher, and a coma or death normal is a, what was it, like a, you have to roll 50, 59 or higher, I believe. So because in the D20, the D percentile, sorry, the D100 way that this system rolls is you want to roll lower than a number, not higher than the number. I just flipped them. You still got a 69% chance. So if somebody needs to figure out how well they might survive, they got those ways to do that. And then circles, fumes, insanity, poison, psychic, or psionics. I like the term psychic better than psionics for fantasy, because psionics is actually a portmanteau of psychic and electronics. So since there's not electronics in my fantasy world, I just make it psychic. That's a little stupid thing of mine. You don't have to worry about that. And again, change it. It's really easy. You just go into it and you create it and you make it versus, or you could even call it saving throw, or psionic saving throw. You can name it whatever you want. It's a D20 defense. You can have all of these. You just want to make sure that anytime you name something, it is unique and it's not the same. And then values to share. These are just things that I built. They're not rolls, but they have the little die next to them. Values to share, so that it'll just show up if you need to tell the game master, hey, game master says, hey, what's your armor rating? You just do that. It makes a little roll sound, but it's always going to be a 12. And I'll show you, this is something that variable that I made for your armor. Your SDC, when your SDC is down by half, the armor rating drops. So if you do this, the armor, if the SDC for this armor is 19 or above, it's the armor rating of 12. If the SDC, that actually should be, I'll edit. See, you can just, if you find you make a mistake, what do? You just edit. So if it is between a 12 and an 18, then the armor rating drops by 2 points. And if it goes down to a third or less than a third, then it's 2 more points. And what you'll see is that I called this AR, and then here's that 12, which is that AR12, the 10 is the AR10, and the 8 is the AR8. Now, why did I do this twice? This AR, this formula, which is just a number, this is what's going to appear here. So if I open this up, AR, at AR, it's looking for that AR. So this is the value that's going to show, but in my drop-down menu, this part is going to show. So I wanted it to actually say AR12, AR10, AR8, so the person themselves, when they're looking at this, they can understand it. So that's why you do that. So if I change this to 10 because it's been damaged, over here, that 12, well, now it's a 10. The very easy way to keep track of that armor rating that normally, I wouldn't say normally, I just know that it was very time consuming and people would forget it, and it did not come into play very often in games that I either played or Game Master, because it was just one of those little fiddly bits that it was just not really worth doing. Here you can make it worth doing. Now, other variables that I've done, I have here these two next to each other, attribute check and difficulty, because I personally, instead of rolling like the official way, which is you take your attribute, you times it by 2 and try to roll percentile under it, I like rolling various D6s depending on the difficulty. So here I have various D6s. So an easy is a 1d6, average is 3d6, and then here is just what type of check it is. So if I want to make an MA check and I want it simple, then I can go over here and skills, attribute check, and here it'll show that 2d6 versus 10. And I rolled good enough, 3 versus the 10 would mean that I succeeded. So that's just an easy way to do things. You don't have to use it. It's not your rule. You don't want to use it, don't make it. You could come up with the attribute check just here as a skill, and instead of this being variable formula pointing to an at difficulty of D6s with a verse attribute check, you could just have that variable here, attribute check, ME, and you could just put it like at IQ times 2, and then instead of the D6, you could just have it as 1D100 versus at IQ times 2, or something like that. So you can make those formulas fit the style that you want. If you're one of the old school people before it was announced on the times it by 2 and use percentile, and you were like me and you just had people roll d20s back in the day, you could make it a d20 versus that attribute. And that is the awesome part of this game aid, is you can tailor the character sheet how you want it and how it fits your system. So another thing that I wanted to show is my off. I have a condition, and you'll see here it says condition. And that's because in Palladium, various spells will blind you. And one will say you have a -10 to strike, parry, and dodge. Another one will say you have a -9 to strike, parry, and dodge. Another one will say you have a -5 to strike, parry, and dodge. And I wanted to consolidate those things as well as other things depending on what confusion, like wisps of confusion, or the cloud of steam, all of those types of things. I wanted to just generalize into kind of 3 categories of being -2 to strike, parry, and dodge, -5 to strike, parry, and dodge, -10 to strike, parry, and dodge. And I wanted to call these conditions off, kind of like, oh, I'm a little off today. So, hey, I'm slightly off. Oh, I'm off. Oh, I'm very off. And then there'd just be, the game master gives you a condition. Why are you off? I'm blinded. I can't see. So that affects anything that I'm using for sight. And what you do there is in the combat, you hit that condition, and you'll see this punch, it went -10. Why is it -10? Because I am very off. And what does very off mean? Very off means I have a -10. Off means I have a -5. Slightly off means -2. Off. And in this combat, if you look at that condition, what's it doing? At off. It means look at off, and whatever's selected, you do that. So right now, my -10, very off is selected. So all attacks are going to be at -10. And why do I have all of these things? Because these defenses, and let me just expand it. Dodge. That is straightforward. It's going to affect dodge. See the -10? That's what it's going to affect. But then I specifically wrote out all the weapon proficiencies because I want it to affect the strike, or the defenses, the parries. Sorry. So it's going to affect all attacks, which I don't need anything because anything that's an attack is an attack, but I want it to affect specific defenses. I don't want it to affect trust and intimidate. I don't want it to affect saving throw versus fumes or circles or anything else because it's specifically strike, parry, and dodge. So dodge is easy, but the parries I need to make the weapon proficiencies. Now, if you wanted to put a WP before all of them, that's fine. And why did I write it out? Just because I took a list, copied and pasted it, and put commas in between each one. It will look for the words ball and chain. Now, if I wanted to, and I only had ball and chain being something that said ball, I could just do ball, comma, and it will look at anything that starts with BALL, and it will make that defense, which we're using as a parry or dodge, but the dodge is already taken care of, it will give it that penalty. I just write the whole thing to make sure that it works. And then at the end, you'll see I even added stuff like improvised in case you picked up a stick or a bar stool and you want to name that attack improvise something, or mounted or charging, because those sometimes can affect things if you're mounted and you're parrying on it. So that's why I made that list. You'll just keep adding things. Do not put a comma at the end. If you put a comma at the end, it will affect everything that is a defense. And if you see something twice over here in your roll, and it says something like -10 condition, -10 condition, you realize, or -5 condition, -2 condition, you will realize that somewhere you have a comma and you need to go back and change that. So that's a helpful thing. But what that does, condition, okay, I'm going to try to dodge 18, but I have the negative 10 because of the condition. I'm no longer very off. Click that, dodge. Now I'm just rolling a straight dodge. And you can do those. Now you see this says defense modifier and attack modifier, same thing, but basically it's because it's going to affect defenses as well as attacks. Wounded, I have it that if my people have any hit point damage, instead of it being one of those, oh, it doesn't matter if you have all your hit points or 1 hit points, or all your SDC and all your hit points and 1 hit point, you're either fully good or fully bad. I just have it as one thing. It's going to give you -2, -2, and for all of your D100 skills, your percentile, I'm going to make it a -20. So all your attacks and all your defenses, and I'm going to include all of these. I figure if you're wounded, all of those are going to go down. So that's a very, very negative thing. You don't want to have hit point damage. But that's my house rule, and you don't have to use it. But I just want to show you that you can make something like that. Now skills, I have a similar thing. I give bonuses or situational modifiers. Wounded, as you saw here, when I open it up, it also affects skills, so that's why it's here, and the other two aren't, because the condition of the off, various types of offs are not there. But movement is, say that you're trying to sew something on a moving horseback. Well, you're moving, it's going to be rough, you can hit that movement, that's going to give you negatives. You look camouflage, it's going to give you a -10. Wounded, I'm going to give you a -20. And then there's various situational modifiers, which I made back here, again on variables. What are my situational modifiers? Positive minor, negative minor, positive medium, negative medium, positive. There's a whole list in newer Palladium books where they go into detail of, like, in this weird condition, you get like a negative this, and if you get in this weird condition, you get a negative this. I just wanted to standardize it. Is it minor? And is it a positive? Is it going to something that helps your skill or hurt your skill? I actually give bonuses for stuff. If you're trying to find somebody and it's raining, then it would be harder for you to spot them. But it would make them easier to prowl because it's harder for the other person to spot them. So maybe I would give them a positive, depending on how bad of rain. I can change that, and what that does over here is when you're in that thing, you give the person a situational modifier, they click that, and then you'll see that they have basically no chance of succeeding, because whatever they're doing, they're sticking out like a sore thumb. Extra time, I also allow extra time up to a certain point to affect things. So these are things, and if you're wanted to do something like where Pathfinder or D&D have all those various conditions, like dazed and stunned and this and that, and you wanted to port that into a Palladium game, that's where all of these would help you. And again, in the all items, you'll see that they are in modifiers. Now here, modifiers, you'll see that these have check boxes. Anything that you want to appear as a click, a turn on and off, a toggle, if you will, you want to keep it unchecked. You do not want it checked. If there is anything that you want to always affect that character, then you will keep it checked, and then that box will not show up. And I'll show you how that works. And here again is all those various variables. You can use this for equipment and containers or notes. These things do not go onto these tabs. Personally, I just use this field for things like age, weight, money, equipment. But if you wanted to, you could put them down here. They're just note fields that really don't do much. If you'll see on my skills here, I always want this one first. So I gave it a -30. Again, the negative numbers go to the upper left. And then this one here would just be a 10. I wanted it kind of down. There's sometimes I'll put something at a negative, like this would be a normal skill. The -1 is the default, and those I will put as a like for OCC skills and things like that. So you can come up with your own number system. If they are all set for that name sort number, like everything's a -1, it will do it alphabetical. It's that the number takes precedence over the alphabetical. So again, here's all where I put all my defenses. Here's all the value to shares. These are just formulas that are going to show that armor rating. As I showed you, it took from the armor rating. The carry, this is your PS times 10. Your lift is your PS times 20. I have a different healing. I have it based off of your level. Instead of like 2d6 or 1d8 per heal, I have it is the caster's level plus the victim's level, or whoever's being healed, whoever got cut up or damaged, and then plus 1/5 of their PE. And I do that basically because otherwise it seems kind of strange to me that people that are hardy, who have good constitutions, who have good health, they take a lot longer to heal, whereas a person who walks outside without earmuffs one day and they'll get a cold and, you know, be on death's door because they rolled pitifully for their PE. It's just a thing that I thought about quite a bit and decided to implement in my game. Again, you don't have to have it. You don't have to make it if you don't want it. My movements are a little bit different, but here it's because I'm trying to get it into yards per meter instead of feet. So it's that weird formula here. But you can make those formulas whatever you want. Like here, physical prowess is a 10. So if I go to the values to share and my my physical strength 10, I had most of them be 10. That's how many pounds I can carry. That's how many pounds I can lift. And now seeing this, okay, I want my carry and lift together. So how do I do that? I look, what is that number? That's a -1. What's that number? That's a -1. This is probably also a -1. So what I'll do is I will make this one, edit, a -2. And I wanted armor rating at the very end, so I will make that a -3. And then this one I will also make a -2, so that the two 2s are together. So now, armor rating, -3, that is upper left of that area, -2, -2, and now my -1s. So that's how you order things. Put them in the order that you want them. And you just add things, and you keep adding things and adding things. Here are the pools. You'll want one that is actions per round. This can be actions or attacks, APR. You want to make sure that that is a all capitalized, and I'll show you why with the combat tracker. And let's say you're using the you have basic hand-to-hand in a game, and that gives you 3 and 2 for living, so you have 5. But say that you're doing something that reduces it. Maybe you're doing archery and archery has a rate of fire which is completely different than your hand-to-hand. So maybe you only get 3 rates of fire, but I want to shoot my bow, so that's why I have my 3. Keep that in mind when I show you how the combat tracker works. So this here is what I use as the base sheet. Now, yes, I took the very, very first and I added all those up, but once I add this, I keep this as a sheet character name. Let's go ahead and close these. And then that was that basic one. Make sure that I delete the right one. So what I will do is I will show you a little bit, not everything, but I'll show you a little bit of how I have done things. So what I want to do is I want to duplicate, not delete, duplicate. Okay, so I will do that, and I'm going to take this character that I showed you from the Roll20 game that I'm doing and convert this. And this here was James's character. He played with us on Roll20, so he could see a little bit of how Palladium First Edition House Ruled works, so that he could make this character sheet really good. So that character's name was Karnak Iron Eye. So there, it changed that. Now I still have my base one, so this is the one that I only want to duplicate. I never want to delete unless I want to start all over again. But then I go to my all items, and I just can click that, and his IQ was a 12. ME was a 10. MA was a 7. PS was a 17. PP was a 23. PE is 18. And physical beauty was a 9. Okay, so just having filled out those, all of those go here. Now they do have the plus, but it just means it's positive. But you will go ahead in combat, you'll already see the carry. That is automatically calculated. Lift is automatically calculated. Movement is calculated. Movement. Now this was that weird formula because I'm trying to get it into yards. So I personally don't like that, all that, how much that took. So I just see that 153, and if I have that weird decimal point at the end, I'll just change this to 153. And there, now it shows. So if a character actually rounds down nicely, then I'll leave it. But I just wanted to keep that formula so I could see it, and then I can change it. So all that condition stuff, I just have a punch as a fun thing. But that's how I would start. I would do that. And then let me show you just how I do skills. Now I have this camouflage skill. This was the very first skill I made. And it's camouflage. And it's a D100 skill. And it's a 20 is whatever your base is. Now in Palladium, the base skill is level 1. And instead of like a 5 per level, after that, it's just 20, and then each level after that could be different in the same skill. So I just put here is what I call the skill, and also it says this skill provides a +5 bonus to locate hidden devices. Now yes, the actual skill in the real rules is called locate secret compartments and doors, but then they have all these things like camouflage, to actually camouflage something or to spot camouflage, and then they'll have palming and how to spot palming. I just have that all as one thing that I call locate hidden devices. It can be doors, it could be a hollowed dagger, false bottoms on drawers, or whatever hidden type thing could be I probably could have just called it locate hidden, but then I don't think there. I think there needs to be a noun, so I just called it devices. I didn't want to call it things, but again, call it what you want it. If you want to just use the real rules, use the real rules, and do not homebrew it. But you can, and that's it. It's a D100 skill. I put it as 10 because various games they'll call either elective skills in secondary, like first edition, and also I believe BTS did it that way. But other places will call them occupational related skills. So you could write in whatever type. Now I put a 10 because I want my skills to be separate. Electives, I think I keep at the -1, and then my secondary I make 10 so that they are separate. At some point, it's hoping that we will be able to make multiples of these, so I could keep, say, my attribute checks and stuff in one thing and call it like checks, and then have another section that I could call maybe checks and OCC skills, and then have one called elective skills and then one called secondary skills, which you could change. And if you wanted to call it OCC related skills, then you could do that, and just more customization. But this is kind of how I'm doing it now. So basically, once I make a skill, I go to this here, items directory, and I drag it from the character sheet over here, and then after that, anytime anybody needs that skill, they can just drag and drop it. And I do that, and I'm doing that as I make characters, and then at the end, all I have to do is fill in the skills that I had not made. So here's what we'll do. I'll show you how I turn this sheet here. Remember, we have the very base, the test. We have this one here, which you will start off with for any Palladium game. And then you will make a template for your specific Palladium game. And then you will end up with something like this, which will be your actual character that has all your things. Like, this is a paladin, he's a troll, he's principled. You'll get all your attacks. And how do you do that? Well, you build it one character at a time. And yes, the first character I did, Cassius down here, he took a little while to do because I was learning how to fill in the formulas and stuff. But then the second character, I mean, off and on for a couple of weeks because I didn't have a lot of time. But then once I sat down, it took me a day and a half. So we'll say roughly 12 hours to make that character. Seems like a lot, but if you're making any type of Palladium character, you know that it can take a long time just to make one on pen and paper. Then Sir Emery was the next one I did. How long did it take me to do him? 2 hours. 2 hours. Not long at all. And each one's easier because as I get my skill list bigger and bigger, then the only thing that I'm having to do when I'm dragging and dropping those skills, because we're not starting at level 1 mostly, all these characters are around level 3, is adjusting that base value. Keeping the level 1 over here, dragging and dropping, it pops open. I'll show you how that works, and then adjusting accordingly. But what do? I made a folder here for character creation advancement. So species, you can call it races, whatever. I just wanted to get off of the term race. So right now I have a kobold, shifter, a troll, and an Urson that I've made, and the shifter is kind of like my version of the changeling. I'm trying to get a little away from IP, you know, and same thing. This is the for monsters and animals. It's sort of like the Bearman. I call them Urson again to get away from the IP. But trolls and kobolds, those are in lots of different games. Palladium doesn't own those IPs. So I just take one of these and I do a duplicate again. Okay, so now I got this kobold copy. So I open that up. Now what is this? This is every cool little special thing that I have given the kobolds. Here is my description of what a kobold is. And the bonus is, and this is my personal house brewed thing, if you don't have it where your races give any type of bonuses, you don't have to do any of this. If you look at the shifter, the changeling, since they have that whole shape change type thing, you'll see they don't have any special abilities that directly affect either damage or D100 skills, but they have description stuff. So over here, the D100 skill for the kobold is going to get a +10 to recognize weapon quality, and for the blacksmithing skill. And then they're going to get a +1 damage to any manufactured weapons. In my mind and my setting, kobolds can just grab any type of manufactured weapon. So if they grab a bar stool or they grab a stick off the ground, it's not been manufactured, they're just going to use it normally. But if they have something that's been created, manufactured, and it could even be a stone axe that has been put on a haft, not just picking up a stone and flaking it. Well, I guess that would actually be, you could have a stone hand axe if you actually chipped it, did flint napping. But basically, if a weapon has been made, been manufactured, they're going to get a bonus. They know how to, they kind of have an intuitive sense of how to use that effectively to kill things. So I just give them a little +1 to it. And again, I wrote all of those so that anything that starts with these words will gain that bonus. If you remember my last one at the end, they did not have this one here doesn't have that mounted and charging, because it doesn't make sense, because mounted and charging and improvised are not part of the kobold's thing. So this is my copy. So Karnak Iron Eye is a dwarf. So I just write dwarf here, and I go to my secret PDF, or my Word document that's opened for my house rules, and I just go and I copy it, and I can just paste it. Oh, that really didn't paste well, did it? Let me try again. I see what happened. Okay, so copy and paste. So there, all of it pastes right in, and what are their special abilities? I'm just talking about how much they mature faster, gray hair, and then they slow down their age, their height, their weight, their dice, size dice, they're different. And basically I use, instead of the thing where the gnomes get these weird dice, and then for large you add an extra dice, which is somewhat okay if like your D6 becomes 2d6 or your d8 becomes 2d8, but the extra dice really is kind of wacky then when you have a 3d6 becomes a 4d6. So I just have different races do different sizes. Small does a d4, medium does a d6, large does a d8, and I have a very large that does a d10. Now the dwarfs, they're short, they're small, but I give the, dwarves are freaking strong, so in melee, I give them the damage of a large creature because they're dense, they're mean, they're tough, and that's my way of doing things. But here, they can remember any walk path. That doesn't need to be something in here, but their speed is a PP -1. So I can get rid of these two things because they don't get any skill type bonuses, but they get that PP of a -1. So I can look here, and if I go here to that movement, so we got a 23. So if I edit that, see how it says at PP? I can type a -1. And it did not do that. Fun. Movement. So it did it at PP. No. Oh, it just says value to chat. That's why. That's why. So on this one, I just have to manually do it, which isn't that big of a problem. Um, the PP, well, I'll just check to make sure that, yeah, it didn't like it because it's a value to chat. And sometimes you have to adjust things because I made a dumb house rule, or, saying a strange house rule. So normally it was PP, which would be the 23. So I just make it 22. And close it. And now it's going to show 22. And that template character sheet here isn't going to change. It just changes for the individual character sheet, which is how you would do things normally. So here, edit. This is, oh, it does say PP times 2. So it should work. Times 2 negative 1 times 2 . $45. That would be a negative 2 actually, because it's times 2, so the PP. So that one actually worked. Why didn't this one work? At PP. Do something like weird like that. No, but I'm not gonna. Maybe after the video I'll try. But you saw that that one worked. And this one here would be, oh, we had that formula. So it was, go to my main sheet, look at that formula. So times 20 divided by 3. So if I pop up my calculator here, and PP minus 1 effectively, so 22 times 20 divided by 3, so about 146. So 146, and close it. I guess that should have been up here. Oh, that's the base character sheet. So, and then I just make this one at 22 because I don't know why the plus worked, but the minus is not working. Or the times worked. And even that worked. Let me just do something very value chat. So I just times it by 1. That is weird, but hey, it works. So yeah, that's how I would do that. So I have this dwarf. So here I want to, in the first thing is in the race, I write dwarf. And then over here, now I have a dwarf, so I just drag and drop. And if there would have been any of those things, it would have automatically added to it. So I can just close that. And then down here, dwarf, and you'll see that that's checked. What does that mean? It means that if there were any modifiers, it would automatically apply that. So let me just show you up here. If I drag the kobold, and if he was a kobold, then see, these would all be ready and waiting. It wouldn't add any skills, but if these skills were selected, and dragged and dropped and chosen by that character, then they would get the bonus. So I'll go ahead and I will delete that. Now the next thing I do is I look to see what has a 16 or higher. So I have a physical strength of 17. And if you know Palladium, that is a what? It's a what? It's a +2, right? A +2 to your damage. 17. Let me look at the chart just to make sure that my mind has not fried. Yes, +2. So what do I do here? Attribute bonuses. See this PS? PS. The base, I have it as just as what it would be at the first step, so it's a +1. So I drag it, it pops up. What do? Make it a 2, and you can make it a plus, or you don't have to. It's just if you need it as a minus, it needs to be a minus. And I use it for everything. So I have a claw there, a tail if it would be like a Saurian character, and then again, all of those weapons, as well as improvised, as well as punch, as well as mounted, charging, thrown, all of those I add PS bonuses to. So now, if I go down here, then I will want to make sure that that is checked. So the PS bonus, and I should be able to show you because I have that punch. He's a dwarf, so his punches are that D8. I put that S there, that is for my size die. But now that I know what character type that is, and then if I'm rolling that punch, you'll see the D8 plus that 2 PS bonus. So all I had to do was drag it, drop it, change it to what it should be, and make sure that it's clicked, and it's ready. And this character never has to worry about PS bonuses. And you don't have to worry about having a total and looking at a knife and remembering to add bonuses. Once they're in there, they're in there. And if you have bonuses that are conditional, like only when you're wearing something, you could do that as one of these things like the wounded. But just instead of it being a -2, -2, -20, they have something that boosts things while they're wearing it or while it's activated, or a spell if you have a wizard or a psychic in the party that likes to buff people with the same buff. You can set those spell effects up that way as well, and you could set those up over here as a spell effect and then drag it to the character and then just use it that way. So having said that, that was his PE or PS bonus. And then we have a physical prowess, which is a 23, and a PP of a 23 adds a +4 to strike, parry, and dodge. You'll see I already had a character with PP, so it's a 4. So I just take her. See how this is a 1 and a 1. So I just wanted to open it. I didn't have to. You just drag drop. It opens it. I change it to a 4. Again, all attacks are going to be affected by it. If you didn't want your bow to be PP bonuses to be used, then you would just do all, you could copy and paste all of that and then take out the dodge, because dodge isn't an attack. But here, I got that, and now if you look at that combat, that was the PP. That should have been strike 2 punch. Somehow I did not add a punch. So if you forget something, oh, that's what it is, sorry. It was probably not clicked. So PP. There. That's perfect example. If it's not clicked, then it's not, see this PP bonus? That appears. So then it adjusts by 4. But you don't want to do that. PP is usually going to be there. So physical prowess bonus, it's automatically there. 4, if I roll, it's showing that I rolled a 1, so that's why it shows critical failure. And it's just going to show a red critical failure if you roll a 1. If you roll a 20, or let me just show this. If we change this 20 here And normally, sometimes men at arms will get a 17 or better, but just to show it, I'll make it a 1. See, that's not the 20, but it was the 1 or higher, so critical success. So that will show up. So I will go ahead and change this back to 20. Now, even though this says times 2, that's more of just to remind yourself what it is. It will not automatically calculate the damage in it. You will just need to times the damage by 2. But what you could do is, if you get that critical, you can roll that, and even though it's not going to show up over here, if you hover over it, it'll show you in the tooltip so that you can quickly remember without opening this. So that was the PP bonus. Physical endurance is an 18. If we look at physical endurance, what's that do? As an 18, that gives you a plus 6% to coma death checks and a 2 to magic versus magic and poison. So I'm pretty sure I had somebody previously who had a PE bonus, so there it is. So see the defenses of versus coma and death. I wrote the whole thing out. Sorry, I just wrote coma and death, and what does that mean? That means in my defenses, see, versus coma and death, even though that has that mystically healed, and this was the normal, since the first part of it is there, it's going to apply equally to both. So that was, I said, a 6. Let me make sure. Physical, 18, sorry. 18, yeah, is a 6 and a 2. So I'm going to change this to a 6 and this one to a 2. And you'll see that since it's magic, I'm applying it to circles, spells, wards, and it was also poison. It says magic and poison. Circles, poison, spells, wards. And I probably did that over here because I opened it. I always tend to open it. So let me drag and drop that, and then let me do that. And then I will go back over here and fix this to be a 4 and a 1 for a 16. But now, PS bonus, what's that mean? It means up here, my defense, my circles, this, remember I talked about that. That went up. That went up. Spells, wards, circles automatically go up. There's my dodge for the high PP. So all of that goes. And then physical beauty was a 9, so nothing there. And you'll notice these are the ones that I've made. If, say, I would have had a character with a high IQ, I would then adjust that and make it that the skills, all the skills would go up. And that's why we don't have the defenses go up because of that. But I haven't had a character yet that does that, so that's what I do there. Background is all those little things in Palladium. They're like if you have a if you're from a noble, or if you're from a noble background or a country background, or things like that. I was going to do one and didn't, so that's why that copy's already there. But here it looks like it. I'll choose. I have one called Craftsman, and I'm not sure if this is official Palladium First Edition or if this is something that I did. But what is it? Craftsman gives these bonuses here. So what do? I have a +4 already from, and I'll call this Craftsman, and then that 4 is Carpentry and Leatherworking. So Carpentry, comma, Leatherworking, not comma, because if you do a comma, it's going to add that +4 to every skill. And then I have one General Repair at a 6. So down here, I can put general repair, and make sure I spell it correctly. And then there was no 5, so I can just get rid of that one. Now, if you want to add something, if it didn't have something there, you would do this, and then you would, write whatever the skill was. Let's say it's medical, and then you have to enter that plus sign and make it go below that. But here, I had 2 that were +4, and 1 that was a 6. And again, it doesn't matter if it's a plus or 6. Sometimes I just get in the habit of doing one, and sometimes I do another. You drag, you drop. Those never change. So then I just make sure that it's been pressed, craftsman, pressed. So there's my background. Now my occupation. I have some occupations here. So I wish to just duplicate. And you'll see here, this is what takes a little bit longer. They're going to have all the formulas, all the different bonuses that you get from your occupation. And this doesn't matter if it's an OCC skill or an OCC related or a secondary, anything that would have bonuses for your character, you just put them there. Like Prow, this one had a 20, but there was a lot for 15, so it just kind of went off. Now, I'm not going to do that right now and waste even more of your time, but that's how I would do that with the what I want to say with the characters. Now, this is what I call my witches. It has its own folder because they get abilities. So then if you're that, you can just choose and pull it across. So that's what that is. And then you have skills. I'll just do a couple of skills. I won't do the whole thing right now. But if I look at this character's skills, they get scale walls. So I want to look at my elective as a OCC skill. So I go down, and these are all the skills that have already been taken by characters. So once they're taken and are over here, then I don't have to rewrite them. So scale walls, I can just go here. And so this is a level 1, and I'll just write level 1 here. That's what he's taking it as. This character here is level 1 character. And I will write all of this stuff. And here you'll see scale walls adds a +5 bonus to the mountaineering skill. So what I'll show you here is then I go to my skill bonuses, and this was scale walls. So then I will need to make a duplicate and call this scale walls bonus. And as I've forgotten this, I will have to look at my other characters that I've made that have scale walls, and I'll just add this to it. So this is to the mountaineering skill. So I will write mountaineering, and it's a 5%, which was already a 5%. It's a D100 skills. You have various things, attacks, defenses, D20 skills, just different ways that you'll choose. And then now I add that. And I want to make sure that the scale bonus, wall bonus is there. And then here up in my skills, now I have a scale walls skill. Now this was an actual OCC skill, so I'll edit a little bit. Over here, I'll just write OCC. And that will remind me that that's why I have that skill. And then I'll just put this at a -5 so that it will stay on this side. And then let me do a medical. This character has actually just the normal medical skills. There's 2 different percentiles on that chart. One is for diagnosis, and one is for treatment. So just drag and drag. It's one skill, but there's 2 different percentiles for it. So I got it there, and I got it there. You'll notice, even though this is an M and this is a C, it moved, and that's because that camouflage is a secondary skill. So I wanted my elective skills there. But anything that would have been modified by one of these would be here. So let me show you mountaineering. This character does have mountaineering, so that's a secondary skill. So I go here, mountaineering. Now let me show you. This is a 26. If I add that skill here, where's the skills? Here. Mountaineering is a 26, but then when I go here, you'll see it's a 31. Why is it a 31? Well, because I had that +5 for that scale walls bonus. Once you start building all your skills and your bonuses as you're creating the character, you will get to a point where these lists will be complete. And I'm just doing it because I'm transferring characters, and all I need is what characters I'm using at the moment, and then in my leisure, after I get the characters transferred, then I can use those. So that's how the skills work. I won't finish this on the character because then it would even be longer, but you can see with all the various skills that I have, and with me talking and explaining through everything, it's been an hour and 21 minutes so far. How if I wasn't explaining things, and if I would have just came on and instead of explaining how all the very proto character sheet works, how this sheet template works, and how I start making the character, I would probably be done with this character by now because of all these things. Now this character here, if I look at equipment, has a dwarven hammer. So I haven't had a dwarf with a dwarven hammer, but I do have a dwarf or a blunt warhammer. So I have this kind of base setup here. So I'll go ahead and I will go ahead and duplicate it, and then I'll open it, and then I will, and why I put blunt is because all those weapon proficiencies, this is going to be based off of the blunt weapon proficiencies, and if you remember those modifiers to parries and strikes, they require the word blunt to be there. So you put blunt, you put your weapon proficiency name at the beginning, and then to show what type it is, that's where I put it in the parentheses. And you can work it out how you want to. I just felt that this was the easiest, and that's why you'll notice things like improvised club, because improvised is that word that I want there. Knife, even though it's a dagger, the knife is the weapon proficiency. Large shield is proficiency. What type would certain things like a punch or a kick, those really wouldn't need. Sling is a sling. There's no special types of slings, but staff, there's an iron. And for thrown things, it's just thrown and then what it is. So as long as it says thrown knife, if I had a throwing knife thrown, it's going to add to that. So here we'll write dwarven hammer. And again, I do my what I want to say. I do my weapons a little bit differently. So the normal warhammer is a DS for size, but my dwarven hammers, because dwarves are tough in my game, and the dwarven warhammer is iconic, they're going to do 3d8 plus 4, which is a lot of damage, but I want my dwarves and my games to be deadly. I don't want things to be chipping away for hours as we go through combat, so I will do that. That is my hammer. It's added. And if I look at my combat here, Oh, that was Dwarven Hammer, sorry. Dwarven Hammer. So drag and drop it. And that should be under... Did it not? Okay, it just didn't do that to begin with. So Dwarven Hammer is blunt. So if I go to combat, now I have that hammer. And if you look, you'll see that 4. All that stuff that I've already added is there. So if I roll, I'll see, why do I get a +4? That's that PP bonus. It never really needed to show up, well, until the punch, but it automatically shows up there. And if I roll that damage by pressing the damage, then it adds my PS bonus automatically. Any weapon that I would do, I don't have to worry about adding and doing any of that stuff. It's already done for me, because I took that time at the beginning and I filled out those huge lists of stuff. Like, we look at that PP bonus, all of these things, but then blunt, right there, blunt. So if something starts with the word blunt, which would be blunt, Dwarven Hammer, it adds that PP bonus. It adds that strength bonus to any attacks that are going to be physical. So, yeah, that's how that stuff works. And you just keep adding. If you look at my list here, I got weapons. I was going to do armor, and I actually am going to remove this. Normally, a character won't have more than 1 armor, and that's what I use this for. So this is all, this and the pool of armor is all that is really needed. But here, psychic powers. Level 1, level 2, level 3. Like I said, most of my characters are about level 3. So level 1, these are the ones that were needed. Level 2, these were the ones that were needed. Level 3, these were the ones that were needed. So yeah, it's all there, and it's just going to build and build until I have my whole freaking compendium ready and waiting here in this. So, and as they, now it's only a few folders. Now you understand how to make a character. Hopefully you will be able to make your own character. And again, this will work in BTS or Heroes Unlimited, Rifts, Fantasy 2nd Edition, any Robotech, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles After the Bomb, however you want to do things, it's going to work. The last thing I want to do before I wrap up is I want to show you the awesome combat tracker. Now, if you want to see how it's done in Roll20, you can watch any of my Palladium Ninter Veil playthroughs, and you will see that I will bring up a combat tracker, and then at the beginning of the round I will say, okay, everybody roll initiative, and then everybody rolls initiative. And then I need to figure out what stance they are in, because Palladium 1st Edition Fantasy, and even Rifts or BTS with that archery that gives you a rate of fire that is not compatible with your hand-to-hand, even though your hand-to-hand attacks will be pulling a trigger as well. In Fantasy, especially 1st Edition, when you read the rules and you really sink into it, you realize that there are 4 completely different types of combat. There is hand-to-hand combat, melee combat, with weapons and punches and kicks. Then there is a mystical type of combat, or spell combat, which would be your psionics, your magic, your clergy casting spells. Because if a melee person gets into combat, it basically stops them from doing things. And it's kind of the same thing with rate of fire. Rate of fire with crossbows and longbows can get a lot more than hand-to-hand, but if hand-to-hand closes, then they cannot do anymore. And since you can't really swap from rate of fire to, unless you want to do math in the middle of the game, trying to figure out, okay, my rate of fire is a 7 and I have 3 attacks, how many attacks? No. Combat person runs up to the bow person and smacks them. The bow person loses all their rest of their actions, or maybe you allow them to use actions only to dodge. But you need to know what type of stance they're in. So here I got various characters. I got my troll, I got my Urson, I got my human, and a little kobold. So he's small, and if you look, it's basically just bars. What are the bars? The bars are, we have hit points, and I use Bar Brawl. I really suggest using Bar Brawl. It's a, if we look over here, it is a module. Bar Brawl. Download this for Palladium, definitely. Normally, you only get 2. Palladium has lots of different types of things to keep track of. Hit points, SDC, armor SDC, MDC personal, MDC armor, ISP, PPE. You'll need your attacks per minutes, although, or attacks per melee rounds, although you will not need the to show those. But here I keep hit points on the bottom. My next one is my shock points, which would be personal SDC. Then my armor. These are seen by everybody because if you look at somebody, you should be able to see how hurt, how scuffed up, how's their armor doing. The ones on the top are ISP, magic points, things like that, because those are like if a person playing Sir Emery here, he would not see those bars. He would not see how much either PPE or ISP or anything else is there. Why? Because that's not something he would readily be able to view. So having said that, I will pop out some character sheets. So we will go Bodil, Francis, Sir Emery, Cassius. And then you right-click that and it pops out the combat tracker. I'm going to just kind of move this up here. I'm going to switch to my chat. I'm going to go ahead and clear chat. See how that works. Now what do we do? We roll for a niche. So I got my niche there. Got my niche there. Got my niche. And got my niche. Okay. Oh, I guess the one thing I need to do is actually get these people into the tracker. So you highlight and put them into the tracker, and then to transfer these numbers up, you roll first, and then you go there. Now everything's in order. You'll see it's showing Cassius. Let's see. There was a way to do that. I'm trying to remember. Roll NPCs. Oh, sorry. This little end combat round 1. If this is not at the top, you hit the back, and it will not increase their attacks per melee, but it will, it will raise that to the top. So if it's not on the top at that person's turn, hopefully there will be a fix, but if not, it's not too difficult. You just click back until you get to the top. Okay, now everybody's attacks are here. Let's see, Francis is there. So Francis, I need to give a stance. So let's make that throw. So here I have my hand-to-hand, my mystic, which can be psychic or magic, that type of stance, my hand-to-hand stance, my bow or ranged stance, and then my throne stance. So I put my people in my throne, or in different stances, because like I said, if you look at the books, you got your basic hand-to-hand chart, you have your magic chart, you have your weapon proficiencies individually. Like a longbow has a different rate of fire than a crossbow. Now I've changed that in my personal game because I wanted everything to more or less reflect the hand-to-hand. So I have like a ranged combat longbowman, a ranged combat ranger, a ranged combat archer, and a ranged combat general, kind of like the non-men at arms hand-to-hand. And I do kind of the same thing with my throne, because if you read the, I believe it's Adventures of the High Sea, they get into juggling, and that's where you get your additional throw attacks, which are different than your hand-to-hand attacks. So I've broken these up into 4 different types of stances. So that's going to show. And if you don't use a stance, what do? You just don't click the thing. This will show whatever the number is in their actions per round. And here, I just have a quick handy thing of what do those mean. So if you wanted to change, okay, now this doesn't affect anything directly, but it does let the player know, hey, in my hand-to-hand, I get 2 actions, and then I can put 2 there. And when the initiative is rolled, you have to adjust this first, and then you adjust the initiative. But what happened? Okay, Frances. Frances, it's her turn to do things. She does whatever. Let's go ahead, and she has a little cool dagger. So I want to go combat. And huh. Oh, sorry. Looking at the wrong character. I was like, I know she has a cool thing. And again, she has this weapon, Starblight, that gives her bonuses when she's using it. So I click that Starblight. Again, that's something that the other characters don't need, so I just made it for that character. Now, if that weapon would go to this person, then I could just drag it and drop it and then delete it off of that character. So you can do that. So she's going to use that weapon. So go ahead, and here she rolled a total was a 15. Starblight gives the weapon itself gives a 1. She has weapon proficiency knife that gives a 1. So she rolled a 13 and then rolls a 15. And then if she hit, she can do damage. So she rolled a 6, and then this is a mystical special weapon that gives +6 damage. Where in my game, a normal is a size die, 1 size die +2, so it does 4 more points. She does her damage, and then when she's done, you go, and you'll see that 2 became a 1. It automatically counts it down. Now Cassius, he can do whatever he wants to do. And when he's done, it counts down. And then Sir Emery, he can do what he wants to do, and counts down. And Bodil, she can do what she wants to do, and count down. And then if I had bad guys in here, the bad guys could do something. Now say that one of the bad guys is going to shoot at Cassius right now. Say that there's a list of bad guys down here as well. And he's going to shoot at Cassius, and Cassius wants to dodge. So Cassius rolls his dodge. But if we hit this, it's going to subtract one of those bad guys' attacks. So what do? You hit the little, it's kind of an interrupt of a parry or dodge. And now it's there. See, it automatically goes. Now Francis will go, and it will skip Cassius because he's out of actions. Now I have it as, let's see, you could do that, and you could go negative if you use the rule where you can go into the unlimited negatives of future rounds by just dodging and parrying if you don't have an auto parry. And you can just keep doing that. But then, say Sir Emery goes, and then now Bodil has 2 at the end, so she bang, bang. Now everybody resets. Now you'll notice, why is Bodil 2? Because when I was showing how that pool works, I adjusted her to hand-to-hand. So let's say she did that bow stance, and now she's in combat, so now she wants to go to hand-to-hand. and I adjust that to 2 because her hand-to-hand is 2, and it automatically does that. So what you'll probably do is you'll probably make the maximum value, if we go here, the maximum value as whatever stance or archery or whatever is in effect has the highest value. You'll put that there, and then the current value is there. Now I did see that Cassius he didn't stay negative, so you will at the end before you hit that last one figure out his negatives and then hit that stop that many times. A little interrupt. But I don't use that. I don't allow that. I think it gets crazy if you have an infinity of negatives. So I just, you can dodge and parry, you can do whatever until you are 0. So it doesn't bother me. In your game, if you allow the negative, just be aware that you might have to adjust that. And then you just go again. Everybody does something. Oops. France is going to have to parry twice or whatever. And then you just go. And everybody... sorry, when everybody resets, when this goes back, you just roll your initiatives again. And then once... so, initiative... I didn't do that last time, sorry. It will keep the same initiative if you do not roll it, but it'll keep those. Again, it went down here to Bo Deal, so I just back, and you'll notice those did not adjust, and then you can just go forward. So, having said that, I have kept your time for an hour and 41 and a half, so by the time I'm done with this, probably 1:45. So thank you. I just wanted to show you how you can play Palladium on the Foundry, how you can make it into any of the Palladium systems that you want, and how cool it is. And if you know coding, you can change these little symbols to mean whatever you want it to mean and insert your own. So that's how things work. In here, the bar brawl, it'll bring up all of those things as bars. So having said that, once again, I am Lehman Crafton Jr., aka Zorbalchan Less Than Guru. And until next time, I will catch you later.